right, we are live on YouTube. Let's go live on Instagram. Beautiful. What is going on, my friends? Happy Thursday. I hope you all are doing well, all things considered, with all of the events that have taken place within the last 24 hours. And I'm not going to jump on here and get political. All that I wish and intend for you is that you can make peace, can find your peace for today, whatever side that you are on, right? Um, Not political. This will never be a political channel. But if this has impacted you as it has myself, I hope that you can carve out some time for yourself. And I know that means differently to different people, but for me, I always find, I process things. I do good with things whenever I'm out on a walk, um, and by myself. So I hope in your own way you guys can find some peace. And yeah, just unfortunate all around. I think what makes me the most sad, outside of losing a life, is just the division that's created for everybody. Um, but that's all. That's all I'll say. I just hope that you guys find your peace in your own way. Um, I want to jump to the post that we have for today. So, um, we posted about today about a client of ours that was experiencing spikes, crashes in their blood sugar for about the past year plus, and really finding no solution to it. Like her labs were normal, her A1C was normal, her glucose was normal, her insulin was normal. There was no validation of her symptoms outside of just, maybe tracking on a CGM or just how she was feeling. And, for most conventional doctors, they're convinced by data, which, I totally get too. But, for someone like this, they kind of fall through the cracks in terms of finding the resources, the types of support that can really help to stabilize their blood sugar, right? Um, and it was really interesting to start working with her. And we've been working with her primarily for the last like 3 weeks, and she's seen some really great progress that I want to talk about today. Um, because she is one of those people that comes from a background of doing everything for everybody, right? Busy businesswoman, has a lot on her plate, running in multiple different directions. Sometimes that makes it hard to care for yourself when you're caring for everybody else around you, putting out fires in every which way, every which direction. Being a mother, all that comes with that, of course, too. So there's a lot to her history, right? There's a lot there, and you know, it was so interesting to be able to help her because we work with clients all around the world that are experiencing the spikes, experiencing the crashes, and just have yet to find something that really works for them. So in the midst of like these spikes and crashes, like she was checking her blood sugar and it was going up to the 200s and then coming back down to the 40s, 200s back down to the 40s, just like a roller coaster all day long. And as you can imagine, if your blood sugar is like that, you're probably not going to feel very good, right? She was very anxious. She was disoriented, particularly around the crashes. She was fatigued. She was burnt out. She was having to eat very, very often in order to avoid those symptoms. She was lightheaded. She was dizzy. In the middle of the night, she'd wake up in cold sweats, right? Um, a lot of different things going on, around that area. And she found the only way that she can make it through the day is by basically living on energy drinks or coffee or caffeine or eating really, really frequently, right? So, obviously those kinds of things, just in practicality aren't going to be the most sustainable in the end, but far more often, uh, you know, they don't necessarily work and they often get worse because the very things often that you're doing is you're reacting all day long to your blood sugar. It's like reaction mode. And when you kind of put yourself, imagine putting in, maybe you're in that place already, which maybe you can kind of see that. But when you're in your like reaction mode all day long, where you're reacting to things, it creates like such a huge stress on you. And so the approach that we take with people of this background is really, really important, right? We don't want to approach that as like further adding to the stress that you're already experiencing, right? Because that's only going to drive those blood sugar imbalances further and those fluctuations further to the point where you're feeling worse, right? So that's what we really focus on for her. And there were three things that really stood out to me when we were getting started because when you're in this state, it's really hard to have the capacity to do much of anything outside of, really focusing on your health. And, for people in this position, it's just how can we create some momentum in the right direction, right? And so the biggest thing that we worked on with her was her stress response, right? Because we can be having a stressful day, we can be having stressful things in our lives, yet we could be very resilient to those. Or we could have, we could be retired, let's just say. We could have little going on and we could have a very high stress response. And so stress response is not determined necessarily by the things, the events, the demands, the responsibilities, the work, the family that is currently in our lives. It's how does our body respond to those moments, right? Does it respond by kicking out more stress hormones, which have a tendency to cause more of those fluctuations that this client was seeing? Or does it respond with, not as much stress hormones so that, it's more so leaning on some of the routines, the habits, the behaviors that you have been working on? Does it lean more on that versus putting out more stress hormones, right? And that's what we worked on for her because, with her job, she was a businesswoman and, lots on you as kind of being the leader, the CEO in essence of that. And everything felt urgent. Every email, every message, every audit, like all these things going on, right? And those are obviously things that we can't always control, right? But we can control, okay, how do we set up our routine in such a way where maybe it makes us a little bit more resilient to those things, right? And so we really helped her to be able to do that, find some space, some time for herself. And I know for some people that sounds like a really basic thing, but you'd be surprised at how many advanced people either aren't doing that or are missing that or aren't doing that in such a way that really works for them. Because so many times when I talk about, oh, creating space for yourself, some people think, oh, that's just breathing exercise or that's just yoga or that's just things I've already tried so far. And it's less about, you know, stereotypical stress relieving activities, and it's more about what feels good to you. Because there can be a vast difference between what works for someone else to find something calming and relaxing and grounding and joyful versus another client, right? So we helped her really define those things that work for her, and she loves spending time out in the sun and reading books um, and traveling, right? And so we find some ways to kind of fit that in within a space that works for her throughout the day, right? Because we can't always go on a vacation to Puerto Rico, which she did, during the program. But we can't. What we can do is control what we do on a daily basis to maybe find some semblance of that, right? So how do we do that? So that was a big focus of ours. Now, the other piece in conjunction with this that was also really big was, we can work on the mental side as much as we want to, the stress side as much as we want to. But if we literally do not have the minerals to be able to cope with our day, to handle our day, it's like pouring from an empty cup. We have nothing else to give, right? And when we have nothing else to give, it becomes very, very hard to feel functional at work. It becomes very, very hard for us to, feel stable without meals constantly. It becomes very hard for us to implement things like even within a coaching program because we just literally do not have the resources in our bodies to say, hey, can I devote the time, the brain space, the energy to this particular thing, right? And that could be exercise, but that could also be this, like mental exercise in terms of, okay, what do I need to do to support myself? And this was a huge turning point for our client as well, because, when you're in this space of reactivity mode and you're going all day long, and you're not used to really prioritizing yourself in these situations, it's very hard to stop, and it's very hard to have the energy to kind of say, hey, let me start focusing on this area. And so what we really worked on with her was getting our minerals tested, which are nutrients found within our bodies but also our food. And we found, she had one of the more, I would say, the highest calcium score that I've ever seen, which is saying a lot. And calcium, great mineral. It's something that we need, but when it shows up high at the cell level, it becomes very problematic because it prevents glucose, nutrients from getting into our cells. Almost like, think about it like this, like it forms a wall between the nutrient that we're trying to get into the cell and the cell itself. So it's like a concrete wall. And yes, of course, some things can pass through, but I think you kind of get the idea that there's this block here, and we saw that for her, and it's a big reason why she was not quite seeing the stability that she needed. And by just addressing those pieces with her minerals, over the course of 3 weeks, she was able to find just like so much more stability. She says she's feeling 75% better, which is great because we're only 3 weeks in, and our program is 6 months long. And it's not to say that she's 100% better. It's not to say that she healed herself from the hypoglycemia, because that's not, realistic. But she's seeing huge stability with just the steps that she's taken so far, and is finally feeling like a normal person again, where she has now the capacity to implement other things, right? And a big piece of that too was the last piece that we'll talk about, which is dense eating. What do I mean by dense eating? Well, something that can carry you for a longer period of time. You might have heard me say this if you've attended other lives, but it's similar to like building a fire. You build a fire, and maybe you start it with twigs and newspaper and maybe a little bit of a gas, and it really shoots up, right? But that fire fizzles out very, very quickly because it has nothing to work on. And that's what people with hypoglycemia are constantly experiencing all day long. They really have nothing to sustain them. And each meal, works for a while, but then it fizzles out, works for a while, and then fizzles out, right? And it's constantly like that throughout the day. And so what we needed to provide it for her was eating more densely in a way that was really working for her body, something that holds for a while, sustains, right? And for each person, of course, that can look a little bit differently. But when we're able to do that, it's similar to putting like dry, dense logs on your fire. You put it on, you leave it for hours, and it still burns, right? And that's when clients get the stability. That's when they, eat lunch and then they're good until dinner, right? And even if they were to miss or delay a meal, they still feel good, right? And it's like building that resilience. And so that was a big part of our first 3 weeks with this client. And now, like I said, she's 75% better. She says she's feeling more calm, more stable. She even, with the blood sugar spikes that she was experiencing, she didn't experiment earlier on. She had like one of those pancakes that's made with like wheat flour, for example. And she ate it, and previously she would spike up to the 200s and then drop down to like the 40s. And now it's just a little bit of a bump, but nowhere near the 200s, right? And she's feeling good. And keeping that within context, like something like a wheat-based carbohydrate or a grain-based carbohydrate, most people are going to react to that very strongly, especially when they have blood sugar issues, right? They're going to spike up or they're going to crash down very quickly. Yet in just 3 weeks, she's seeing more stability than she's seen in years, right? So it's huge. When we hit on the right things, it really makes some huge progress really, really quickly. So I'm excited for her because she finally has that relief again, and she's regaining that freedom back. And there's no doubt in my mind that she'll be able to eliminate this and being able to be fully functional within the next 6 months, so that she can exercise, she can have stressful days, she can miss meals, she can eat a lot of carbs in a meal, and it's not going to affect her. Right. And that's what we want. I think that's what most people want, is that freedom where they're not constantly thinking about how they're feeling, what they're eating, questioning it. Right. So, really a great client story, something that I know will continue to progress for her. But if you guys are looking for stability as well, without cutting out carbs, without relying on medications, we would love to work with you. If you are looking for support, please reach out. This is what we do on a daily basis for all of our clients, no matter what blood sugar condition they have. All that we require is, an open mind, having some interest in functional nutrition, functional health, because we find when our clients really resonate with that, it helps with buy-in, right? And buy-in is such a huge thing when we're bought into a process, when we understand in the way that it works, we have confidence in the way that it works, then that automatically increases our ability to follow through with the actions that are required to do that. So if that is you, if you are experiencing blood sugar challenges and want a long-term solution to that to resolve those for good, please reach out. We'd love to help. All right. Cool. Well, we will see you guys in the next live, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your Thursday. Take care, guys.